Hello, I'm Michelle Peard, and I'm pleased to be here today to show you a beautiful page layout that features two of my loves, my husband and acrylic. Okay, let's see how all of these elements come together. Today I'm showing you how to use a Stitch-A-Crylic shape, a heart, that is made by Sunday International. Now these shapes come in a packet of 3, and Sunday International has many different shapes to choose from. Now I'm also going to be using a stamp to impress the image, and I'm using this image right down here from their Love set. It's sort of a Florentine heart. Now I'm so excited to show you how these stamps work because they come unmounted on a cling vinyl that allows you to adhere the image directly onto the acrylic block. All I have to do is lightly tap, and then you can see that I'm ready to ink my stamp. And I'm going to be using a solvent-based ink in black. Now the reason I'm using a solvent-based ink is because we're using a smooth acrylic piece, and I'm just going to show you how easy it is to press the acrylic right down onto the stamp. See how I can just line up the point of the heart and the center of the heart, and I'm just going to press down and lift off for a beautiful image. Now the next step will be to heat set, and that just takes a few seconds, and it really sets the ink so I don't smear it when I'm going to color it, which will be the next step. So once that's cooled, I can go ahead and begin coloring my image, and I'm going to illustrate that for you. I'm going to use a permanent-based red marker, and I'm just going to color in these small hearts. And you can use permanent markers, you can use any sort of ink that will adhere permanently to a smooth surface. So I'm going to bring in a piece of white cardstock that I have trimmed with some decorative edge scissors, measuring 3 1/4 by 10, and I want to show you how I add the letter embellishments. Now I've used a die cut to trim out these letters, and I'm going to use the heart, of course, as the O. So I'm going to place these right onto the title block, and as I look at this I can see that it's a slight bit out of scale. So I'm going to move these out of the way because I realized once I die cut these that I have the negative piece of the die cut, and now I can easily place these onto my header, and that way I can see, wow, that is a much more balanced title block. So I'm going to take some normal adhesive and I'm just going to lightly tack this down. And if you do this at home, of course you would adhere that a little bit more complete, but I'm just going to lightly tack this so I can show you how to do the stitching. And I'm just eyeballing where to place that onto my title block. So once we have that done, we are now ready to stitch. Now I want to show you a wonderful technique for any time you are adhering an acrylic piece to some paper. You want to go ahead and pre-pierce your holes. Now it so happens that the Stitch-A-Crylic has holes pre-drilled in it. So now I'm going to just take a piercing tool and I'm going to pierce down through the paper into the pad. Now you can use any pad. I've used just a basic foam cushion, but you could use a mouse pad or anything that's going to stop that tool from going through to your table. So now I've finished my last hole there and I'm ready to start stitching, and I'm just using a simple red embroidery floss and a tapestry needle size 14, and I'm going to turn my header over and I'm going to start through the pointed part of the heart, and I'm just going to pull my thread all the way through there. Now you can see that I've tied a knot through the end, but you could also just tape that because no one's going to see the back of your paper. And I'm just going to continue on and see how easy it is to pull the thread right through the paper. And I'm just doing a simple stitch going back and forth through the shape. I do want to show you how I completed the title block by matting it with red cardstock. It's nice textured cardstock. All of these elements I got at my local store, Jazi Crafts, and it's wonderful because you can shop online. Even though they're in my neighborhood, they're really worldwide. And so now we are ready to move on to our second element, which features this photo of my husband and I in Mendocino. And I love this photo, so I want to highlight it by using a Stitch-A-Crylic frame. And you'll notice that it's clear, and I could leave it just like this and have the photo show through the frame for a nice effect. But I am going to go ahead and color the frame using a white opaque pad, because I think that that will pop that frame and balance the white in the scrapbook paper. I just tap it right onto the acrylic. And what is so great about this opaque pad is it dries very quickly onto the acrylic. So I am going to heat set that once. And once again, it just takes a few seconds to heat this acrylic. And it will be a little bit warm, so you'll need to be careful if you're doing this with children. But you are going to do this twice, and that will give you a nice bright image. As you can see here, I've done 2, and boy, look at the difference. So I am now ready to add my photo. I'm going to bring it back in here. Once again, since I'm using a photo, I'm going to set this down and pierce the holes again with my piercing tool, and then I will stitch around just like I did for the heart. And it's wonderful because the stitching holds the photo right into the frame, so that looks very nice. And now the last element, of course, is to add the heart brads. Now I'm using red hearts, but you could use any sort of brad or embellishment. Even a solid round one would look very nice. So now you see the finished second element, and I'm just going to clear my table so I can begin to show you the third element. And I'm going to use some resin stickers and 3 Stitch-A-Crylic blocks. Again, these are by Sunday International. And I'm going to just go ahead and take these stickers and place them right onto the center block, which is nice because you can just cover up that hole. No one will ever know it was there. And now we're ready to add our brad through the center hole. I've chosen a heart brad. I'm going to turn that over and show you how easy it is just to fold that brad over, and you're ready to stitch it to your page. I'm going to bring in, once again, my mat and my white cardstock, and this measures 4.5 by 5.5, and I'm going to line up my tile blocks. And the easy way to remember is to just line the corner with the top corner. So you see I have 1 hole here, 1 hole there, and I've done the same for the top. I would continue on, and using my piercing tool, I would pierce down around the holes, and once that's complete, you have a nice framed image here with a red piece of cardstock measuring 6.25 by 5.25. I want to show you the finished page with the header, and what's really nice is I've attached it to the 12 by 12 scrapbook paper using a red staple, and I now can bring in my other elements that I've completed and just adhere these onto the page using adhesive. Now I could turn this sideways, I could do all sorts of things, but I'm just going to adhere this square onto the page. Now we have a finished layout, and it features the Stitch-A-Crylic heart, and that ties directly to my heart, which is my husband. Now I'd like to show you some other ways to use the Stitch-A-Crylics. This is the page we just completed, and as you can see, I've done a lovely card here using a Stitch-A-Crylic heart and some red embroidery floss. Now the last element I'd like to show you is this layout, and you can see we are featuring the daisy-shaped Stitch-A-Crylic. Again, I've used floss of different colors to attach them to the scrap layout. Now I've had a wonderful time sharing these projects with you, and I hope that you enjoy using the Stitch-A-Crylics as much as I do.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.